Hello and welcome to
Absolute Game Off.
Nerd! We are your non-geek, non-nerd hosts, JP and Rohan. I got it right this time.
Hey, you did get it right this time.
About that. A lot of practice here. But we have with us Graydon from Last Pack Magik channel. He has his channel called Last Pack Magik. So Rohan, give this man a better introduction than what I just did.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, Graydon is of the Last Pack channel. That's also one of his Instagram handles. He also is Sabertooth PC.
Yep,
that's right. Yep. So I met Graydon first off on the card side. He's a big set collector. He's a massive Sabertooth collector. All that we're going to talk about. But then also recently he's evolved some and he's starting into comics. We're going to hear the whole story. Looking forward to getting into it. Graydon, how you doing? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, guys. This is super cool.
Yeah, awesome. So we always start with the same original or same first question, of course, which is what is your origin story? So take us way back, whenever it was, when the original love for this hobby, started for you.
My story is not exciting in the slightest. It's the exact same as every single one of you guys. I started collecting cards as a kid. The Marvel sets really captured my imagination on the schoolyard. And I didn't have a job when I was in grade 3. So I had no money and I couldn't buy any cards. So I just, floated through and got packs and stuff like that. And I loved the Hildebrand art, the 94 Marvel Masterpiece set. Yeah. Really, I don't know, it really sparked. I was always a creative. I was always into drawing, but it really made me realize what was possible in comic art. And I sat in class and I drew and I really enjoyed them. And then Pogs came out. I think I lost interest in Marvel cards when Pogs came out. And I kind of rode through those little hobbies. And then I think our age group has a love of nostalgia. And then in 2012, I decided to return to Marvel cards and I started buying base sets on eBay.
Awesome. Well, I really want to touch back. It's so funny how common it is that us all, not only is it those cards, but we all drew. Like we had some tie into like drawing. I'm curious though, was your drawing you freehand drawing things, or were you looking at like the cards or the comics or something and drawing those?
So just from living in the countryside, I was always drawing. I was always drawing landscape. I was always drawing animals, and I had a rather good hand for it. And in class, there was nothing in front of you to draw. And so I drew comic characters. I sat down and, I drew comic characters and it just translated into an adult. I still do it when I'm at work.
That's your work right there?
Yeah, this is a little sketch card. I got a room full of paint when I'm off work. I try to do an hour a day. So,
dude, that's great. I was literally going to follow up with, do you still do this? That card looks great too. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I still do a lot of art. I was, I'm not a trained artist by any means, but I was a landscape oil painter for a very, very long time. I've participated in fine art for 15 years.
That's rad. Oh, very cool. Very cool. When you were a child, who were the characters that you were drawn to? Was it Sabertooth from the beginning, or was there, what were the guys that you were mainly into, at least to start?
Yeah, I was really into X-Men. I love the cartoons. I was into Sabertooth mainly as a battle with Wolverine. I loved those battle scenes. I always thought those were so cool. I liked Wolverine as a kid. I really liked Rogue. It's really tough to say if I had a favorite because the things that drew me.
Would that be X-Men 97 Rogue or just Rogue from the comics?
Just Rogue from the comics.
She was drawn a little more curvilious.
It might have been it might have been the case. I can't remember, but it was. There was a lot of the characters I was drawn to.
Bruce Willis, you there?
Yeah. Did you lose me?
No, we're
we got you back now.
Okay. With Bruce Willis, oil field jokes never get old. Just for the record.
The comet's coming.
That's right. And I know I liked characters off drawing them. I wasn't really drawn to them for personality traits, I guess. Yeah, more
got
friends.
It. So when Pogs came out, you said then you forgot about kind of the cards. So was that like your first break then from Marvel, or was it those Marvel Pogs? Or talk to me about that.
Oh, well, truthfully, my introduction to Marvel cards at that age was so brief. Like it was probably a school year. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was. How it was when you were a kid, things just happened so quickly. Like a school year was a long time. And then when Pogs came out, I was just into whatever Pog. I liked the actual Pogs and the characters that were on them. I'm sure I had Marvel Pogs. It was so long ago now, like I barely remember my middle name, let alone what happened back then.
I always think though
Super
it's funny when I
fans on
think
it.
back, like when we had those transitions, it's like you get into the next thing, and I always remember my mom being like, "Why are you spending money on this?" And I'm like, "No, mom, this is the thing that's gonna stick." And then like literally
Yeah.
on to the next.
The most consistent thing in my life that I kept as a young person was skateboarding. When I started skating, I never stopped. So for me, that carried through. And skateboarding is synonymous with so many different types of popular art that, like, from the graphics that are in it, that I always carried through with that, I guess.
Wait, so you've maintained the fine art hobby side. Are you still a skateboarder then?
Yeah, I still skate and I still surf, and yeah,
Look
I
at
do.
Graydon is just the Renaissance man of the Marvel hobby.
Well, I do a lot. I live a very full life.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Awesome. Okay, so then you stepped away. You know, it was only brief. What brought you back? Was there an initial bring back, or was it just back when you were an adult, or how's the story go from here?
So I mean, it kind of relates to me being Bruce Willis. When I went to the oil patch, I I had an income and I had a job and I had some free time, and so I remember being with one of my first checks. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a Super Nintendo because I had one as a kid, and I was like, started going down this like nostalgia road. And then so I got myself a Super Nintendo and some games, and then I was like, I'm going to get the skateboards I liked as a kid unskated, and I'm going to hang them on the wall. So like I collected Chad Muscadex, I collected a ton of Santa Cruz, Jason Jesse. Jim Phillips is my favorite artist from skateboarding. So I collected a lot of stuff. And then I was like, hey, remember those Marvel cards that were super cool? Maybe I should look if those exist. And sure enough, you could buy a base set of 90s Marvel cards for $30.
Yeah.
That started.
I was going to say, point out real quick, the Bruce Willis commentary for those that before we started recording, Graydon works on an oil rig, and so I made a dumb Armageddon joke, and so hence the Bruce Willis commentary. But okay, so what year was this? Kind of when you kind of picked back up the original Marvel set?
2012.
2012. Okay, so and then have you been in it since, or was there another break?
So there's been lots of breaks. I didn't know that they were still making Marvel cards because I went in chronological order. So I started in 1990, and in 2012 I bought the 1990 Marvel Universe set, and some time would pass, and I would buy the 91, and then the 92, and then the 93, and so on and so forth. And I made it to like 2000, and then I took a break again and got busy with life, and then maybe 2 years ago, I discovered that they were still making Marvel cards, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta buy new sets and keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing for me. Like, I obviously knew about the cards when I was a kid, and then I knew that they made them longer than I stayed in, but then I essentially assumed they kind of died off in the 90s. And then I got back into the comic side in 2022. And it wasn't until like almost, maybe 9 months after being back into comics, I started following some people that had cards. And I was like, oh, whoa, they're still making Marvel cards in 2022. And obviously now 2024. And then, rediscovered all of these things obviously since then. Okay, so at this time coming back in, you were primarily collecting sets then, correct?
Yep. So I have a lot of sets. I love sets and binders, and I did not start character collecting until not that long ago, actually, pretty recent.
You said sets and binders, so like you put them all in the binder for display. So you don't have them like in a big plastic container with the whole set. They're all in the binder, so you can flip through everything and see them all, right?
Yeah, I suffer from an unbelievable OCD, and I have the
Nothing wrong with that.
I have the exact same binder.
I was gonna say, I know you've mentioned that on your channel several times that you buy the exact same binder. Is it a top loader binder? I'm curious, or just one like those ones from when we were kids?
No, it's just a 1/2-inch black binder. 12 of them are $30.
So do you have it like on the side? Is it all labeled with what you have?
So you know what, it is, but it's really rudimentary. It's like it's handwritten on stickers. Because when I decided I had these sets in huge binders before. I wasn't always meticulous. But when I got a bit more serious about it, I organized them all, and I'm printing off proper binder covers that are sleeves that will slide in, and that's one of the next steps, but I have not gotten to that yet.
So like you're gonna put something in front like this.
Yes, exactly. I would like it to be relevant to the set, and then I'll likely somewhere in there have a printed checklist.
Yeah. I'm curious, just real quick, how often are you, when you're back at home and you have your binders in your room, how often are you kind of pulling one down and kind of taking a scroll down memory lane?
So, that's a great question. When I'm at work, I have my stuff is with me at work. So
okay.
I have a residence that's very close to where I work. And then when I go home, to my actual home with my wife, I don't have a single Marvel card there. So when I'm at work and I'm on
it's your work wife.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I'm home, I frequently open them up, and I open them up not only to flip through and enjoy them, but I frequently reference characters. They're like, or something will remind me, be like, oh man, there's a card about that, and I think it's in this set, and I'll find that binder and go through it. And I open them a lot. I really enjoy them.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I'm curious, with not having one at home with the wife, does she not like the hobby at all? Like she doesn't want anything to do with it, or?
My lovely, wonderful wife puts up with a lot of my hobbies. So like surfing takes place at 6 a.m. in a frozen cold ocean in a wetsuit, and she would like to have breakfast together, but she puts up with me going surfing. After work, she wants to get together and do something, and I'll end up at the skate park. So she puts up with a lot. She's not a huge fan of Marvel, but she loves the movies. We watch a lot of Marvel movies together. We definitely share that.
Cool. Very cool. All right.
So where you live, you can surf all year round. Is that true? Or
no, only in the winter. So we get the large Pacific Ocean storms that come through in the winter, and the swells reach land, and then in the summertime the ocean's very calm.
I had to tell you, just as that on the side of the surfing, like I've done a handful of amateur surfing, we'll say. Like, when you think about the appeal of surfing, you're like, oh, it's the sun and you're warm, you're in your trunks, you're going. And it's like, you're talking about, you're in the freezing cold water, you're in a wetsuit. I mean, it's gray. Like, because I'm in Washington, obviously. I know these guys that go out to the coast, and it's like, oh, like, no, that's not for me.
It's cold. I've surfed La Push. That's kind of close to you.
Yeah, that's where a bunch of my friends go is La Push. Yeah.
La Push is good. It gets pretty real there. It's a nice little beach. Me and my wife go. There's a motel we like there. It's cool.
Yeah, no, like to be perfectly honest, like I'm such a cold bitch. Like I don't want that. If I'm surfing, I want it to be sunny. I want to be yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But no, that's awesome. So as you're collecting sets, what then turned you towards Sabertooth?
So I knew about character collecting. I realized that there had to be another way of collecting besides just sticking base cards in an organized manner in binders. And I had a handful of characters, and I was really close to pulling the trigger on character collecting Mystique. I was trying to make a decision of who I was going to go for, but I told myself that once I picked, I was really going to go for it. I wasn't going to like collect a couple of characters. I wasn't going to have like 3 or 4. I was going to go for one. And I was opening up a box of Marvel Beginnings, and the very first card I pulled out of Beginnings was a Sabertooth card.
Is this the new Beginning set or the one from a decade ago?
This is the new one.
Okay.
And I opened it up, and I was like, I pulled a Sabertooth card, and I'd already had a lot of Sabertooth cards because that was a character I like. I always loved those cards, so I kind of had them in a shoebox. And when I pulled a Red Supernova Sabertooth, I was like, it's on. So.
Nice. And so what does that endeavor then look like? Like, what is your kind of goals look like with Sabertooth then?
So, nothing short of saying I have an outrageous collection of Sabertooth cards. I have, so I, like you had mentioned, I have a Instagram that's Sabertooth PC, and I've shared a good bit of what my collection is. A huge portion of my collection is currently in the United States because it's so much cheaper to ship it there. Mm-hmm. So what my collection's broken up a little bit at the moment, but it consists of base cards that I enjoy, rare inserts, sketches, plates. What else would it? There's some. I kind of call it paraphernalia. There are like things that are like comics that had cards in them that are part of it. So like, it's a bit of a deep dive. It's well rounded.
So is the goal, as the ultimate goal, while albeit may not ever be actually achievable, but it's always the chase that gets, is it every Sabertooth card that has been made, and does that include just his cards? Does it include cards he's also on? What does that look like?
So I think what you're basically referencing is a master
Yeah.
I am very close. If I'm going to say I'm close to having a master collection of it, as there are just so many new cards coming out.
That was going to be where I was going with this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that for a lot of character collectors, when you reach a point where you're pretty serious about it and you're collecting a character that's realistic to get all of the cards, my cutoff is pretty much 2023. I'm not really losing any sleep over the 2024 and beyond stuff until I complete that kind of that leg of it, yeah.
And would you hope to are you willing to go as far as if you have the ability to get a 1-of-1, you would go that route?
I love the 1-of-1s. I know a lot of people that own the 1-of-1s of Sabertooth. I kind of have a really good idea where a lot of the things are. And if they want to part with them at a price that I can afford, I'm definitely interested. I've never lost a minute of sleep over not owning one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I was getting. Are you at all exactly? Yeah.
I don't, I like we were talking about, this is our hobby. I really don't get stressed out about the hobby. This is pure enjoyment for me. I've never really missed something that I was upset about.
I think too, and this is not just cards. This is comics. This is any collectible hobby. I would say is, I think to actually enjoy the hobby, you have to accept the fact that you can't have it all. And in this hobby, I feel like, unfortunately, you do come across individuals that haven't accepted that reality, and it's kind of taken over this tyrannical kind of persona. And it's I hope they're still enjoying themselves is all I think about. Because when you talk about the stress and all that stuff, it's just because again, especially when we have numerous sets now that have multiple 1-of-1s, it's just not possible, right?
Yeah.
It's just not.
It's really not feasible for a lot of things. I think that I understand that there are people who are that get really passionate about the hobby and really passionate about their collection. And I'm passionate about mine, but it's a hobby. It's a very enjoyable hobby for me that doesn't really get too crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, as recently you've been started talking about, you've also now started getting into comics. How did that evolution take place?
So it's funny. Cards can't exist. Marvel cards can't exist without comics.
This is the connection I always think about when So
there's just no there, and one came before the other, right? There's no mystery. So I enjoyed the cards so much, and then there was an insert that came out, comic cuts, and I started seeing the comic cuts out there, and I was like, these are really interesting. This is really cool, and I can never find Sabertooth ones, and I was like, what is going on? Why does everybody post all these comic cuts they have, and I don't have any? And then I started thinking to myself, I'm upset that I can't find a cut up comic. Why don't I just buy the real one?
What I find funny about now, comic cuts absolutely are a cool insert. The thing that I think is crazy is so many comic cuts are legitimately coming from sub $5 books.
Yeah.
And you'll see these comic cuts though, then they'll sell for $20, $40, even some a lot more than that. And I'm like, you realize you can just have the whole damn thing versus just one panel. And it's
for real.
And I understand there are some the AF-15 cut, for example.
But that one doesn't make sense to me that they cut up an AF-15.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Again, my only hope there is Upper Deck says that they bought a high grade one, but we all hope that it was an incomplete, restored high grade kind of thing. Because yes, absolutely, it's. I would hate to think that they bought an 8.0 and then chopped it up. It's are you insane?
From the business standpoint and some of the awful decisions that Upper Deck makes, I can guarantee you it wasn't expensive. It was not an expensive book.
Yeah, 100%.
There's just no way that they spent the money on us to make it cool. Not a chance.
Yeah, I mean, you also just can look at for all the cool comic cuts there's so many. They're why did you cut that panel?
Yeah, it's because that's found at the thrift store, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Or they split a panel, and it's this doesn't make any sense. Come on.
Totally.
Okay, so obviously the connection, and I agree with you. The connections are I do get it when a comic, and like we talked about this with Amanda, Graded Gamer, and she was like, I get like a comic guy may not get into cards because comics are the thing, but like, she's like, as a card guy, you have to accept that like this is a derivative of that. So like, how could you not at least have some interest in there? So what are your goals comic wise then? Like, what are you thinking like you want to get into or are getting into pursuing?
You know, so it's for me, I don't do graded trading cards. I'm not interested in graded trading cards. All of my books that I've bought were graded. Were all CGC 9.6s. And I love the Sabertooth covers. So I'm buying comics strictly for the cover because they're graded. I can't read them. I can't open them. I can't do anything other than stare at this super cool comic and get the 9.6 grade that's super affordable to buy for my budget and still a very high quality book, in my opinion. So I'm literally just shooting from the hip, buying books that I like the cover of.
Tell me real quick, why not graded cards, but why graded comics?
I love the CGC encapsulated. Sorry, I'm holding a paintbrush. I love this CGC encapsulated book. I think they look so good. They're so fun to display and to store. And I don't know. I love being able to touch the book like that without like screwing it up. I like the I like how it's preserved, and I think it's cool.
But then why does that not apply to card, or especially like when CGC used the blue label to grade cards?
Yeah. Card grading is, and I understand that comic grading can be really, can vary greatly. Like I know that there's a lot of conversation about like what this grade gets and all that. And in cards, I think that it's a way of creating scarcity in cards that weren't ever intended to have it, like 90s cards.
Okay.
It doesn't really do it for me. I think that like grading is a hobby within the hobby, and I'm super down with people that do it. Like, do you love it for you? That's wicked. And for me, it's like I'm so focused on trying to get my master collection set up that like the idea of worrying about it being a 10 or a 9, I just don't care.
Yeah, I actually like that discussion of like it kind of takes away from the essence of the purpose of the card. That's kind of a great way to put it. So let me ask then, if you were to then, let's just say a Sabertooth card you happen to get just happened to be graded, are you cracking it out or are you leaving it?
Just happened to me. I just bought an Omega bronze PMG from Fleer Ultra X-Men 2018. And it's graded, and none of my cards are graded, so I'm going to take it out for consistency. So to answer your question, like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then does the Sabertooth collection get bindered similarly as the sets?
Oh, sorry, I missed you there. You paused. Say again, please.
I was going to say, does the Sabertooth collection get similarly bindered like the sets?
Good question. No, it's in a huge Pelican case, and it doesn't fit in the Pelican case anymore. So I've done a top loader binder that I've covered from 1988 to 2000. And then I'm working on a binder for a couple of other years. There'll be 2 other binders, and then really special inserts like PMGs go in my Pelican case.
You ever flying with that? So it looks like someone's like, that guy's got the nuclear codes.
I flew with it once, and at the not at the check-in or anything, but when I was getting onto the flight attendant asked me, she's like, is there anything in your case that we should know about? And I was like, yeah, there is. I was like, there totally is. And she's like, what is it? I'm like, PMGs.
Yeah, precious metal
She
gems.
didn't get it. Yeah, she didn't get it. They put me on the plane. They didn't care.
Oh,
but
I was just saying, I could just imagine going through security and having someone touch it. I'd be so pissed. I just went through security like recently, and I had to go back through the line because I had a water bottle, and they couldn't just dump it out. So I couldn't imagine if they're looking at these cards and shit, and I'm like, don't touch that.
I frequently have flown with sealed product, and when it goes through the airport security, they look at it through the X-ray. They look at you and they're like, trading cards? Like, bud, you're like 35. Like, come on. It's so funny.
Yeah, and then what are you doing here, bud?
Yeah. I'm just thinking like of that situation of JP, like they have to open it up. They're like pick it up. The next thing, like he's like dropping. You're like, bro, like come on. Like, that'd be so frustrating.
Usually I get stopped. Like when I flew out the first time to Florida a couple weeks back, I went through the metal detector and they like something around your crotch lit up. And I went, okay. They said, well, we can frisk you here in a private room. And I said, let's go to the private room, see what happens. Fucking, I'm like, of all things, that my belt went off, and they couldn't just wand the belt and say you're fine. And then I come back and I had coffee in a suitcase. That didn't trigger anything, but the sunscreen did. Coffee. If you've seen Beverly Hills Cop, coffee hides cocaine smell. I got on the plane with coffee, but they said sunscreen, no. And they took the sunscreen, and I had to go back through customs. So, luckily you got through with your broken brief. The football made it through.
I fly once a week. I feel your pain.
Great. I do like the idea of the security guy being like, bro, you're 35. What do you do with these cards? And then you being like, not only do I have the cards, I have a YouTube channel about the cards.
100%. I got 200 subscribers, buddy. You don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. People look at me for advice on this stuff. Like
double nerd.
I am the super nerd combined of all the lesser nerds. Like
100%.
Yeah.
This is a non-geek, non-nerd show, just so you know.
I was going to ask, with the 9.6s, are you hoping to CPR those in a 9.8, or is it just because, like, why pay the 9.8 premium when I can do a 9.6 and looks essentially the same?
That you banged it right there. I got, nobody really gets to go into a hobby and ask professionals about it, like what you should do. But I did, because I waited so long to collect comics. So I talked to some friends, and I got some really good advice. And they told me that if you're going to collect just graded books, pick a grade, because if you get one lower than the most you have there, it's going to be one that stands out in your collection to you. You'll see that, if you have all 9.6s and you get a 9.4, he's like, you're going to notice the 9.4 a lot. So a lot of people were like, you should pick a grade and stick to it. And I looked at 9.8s and I was like, yeah, I could do that. I'm like, ooh, those are a bit steep for me. And then I saw 9.6s and I'm like, dude, I don't think I've ever spent more than $65 on a comic.
Oh, okay. Now,
with all your Sabertooth books, you haven't spent more than 65.
Well, I was say, do you have an Iron Fist? You have an Iron Fist 14. We've talked about that, right? What grade is that?
I do. That's actually, sorry, I should backpedal right here. I do not have that one graded. That was one of the first comics that I got, and it is the first appearance of Sabertooth, and that was a gift from work. That was my Christmas present from work.
Oh, that is a great gift. I love that. I was gonna say though, because I legitimately just saw today on Instagram a 9.6 Iron Fist 14. So
what they want for that one?
I think it was $899.
$1,100.
I think it was $899. Yeah. And I mean, I think a 9.8 is usually around like $2,000-ish. Now, what you should, if you like rarity grade, I don't know if you're aware, Iron Fist 14 has a 35-cent variant. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay, so that year when they were making comics, they wanted to experiment with pricing fluctuation. And so they picked a handful of comics.
Okay.
And for a super short print run of those, they increased the price from 30 cents to 35 cents. Now, the most sought after 35-cent comic is Star Wars #1. If you can find a Star Wars #1 in the 35-cent variant, I mean, that thing is worth a good chunk of money, especially if it's high grade. The number 2 most valuable 35-cent comic is Iron Fist 14.
Yep.
So that is something that you should think about. Now, I mean, that especially if you go high grade, again, that is going to cost you a pretty penny, but it would be a cool piece to have in your collection. And it's kind of cool. Like, I mean, Star Wars is a Marvel comic, but I mean, it's not really Marvel IP, right? It is kind of like a different IP. And so like, you could literally tell them like, look, it's the top of the chain of the 35-cent variants when it comes to Marvel. So some to keep in the back of your head while you're looking for them, you see one with 35-cent, grab it.
Well, that's kind of like the 1-of-1 cards. That's probably the closest to 1-of-1 you're going to have. And I mean, I'm sure there's other comics that are 1-of-1 or very short print runs or not a whole lot left, like Golden Age. But that 35-cent variant,
I have seen a couple, not in person, but just like someone posted on Instagram of Star Wars. I think I've only seen 1, maybe 2 Iron Fist 14s in the 35-cent variant. But I know, like, I believe there's a recorded sale of a 9.8 35-cent variant. And it's like, when it comes to the Bronze Age, it's in the top 5 most expensive Bronze Age comics ever sold. So I mean, it's like up there with like the Hulk 181, 9/8, and things like that. So yeah, just a cool piece of
Did that come in Mark Jewelers?
I don't know if it did, but I mean, it probably. I mean, it's the Bronze Age had Mark Jewelers, so I bet there is probably a Mark Jewelers one out
And the
there.
35 cent would even be like rarer to get.
I don't know if the 35 cent though would have the Mark Jewelers. I don't know. I don't know those details.
I'd have to find out, but we're going from the inexpensive 9.6 to these, $50,000 9/8. But none of us are gonna want to buy that kind of stuff. But it's kind of a cool thing if you like that character, because if your character had that one book that everyone sought after, that kind of makes it even more special about the character. Like Spider-Man has his books, but like if you're a Blade guy or you're a Juggernaut, they don't have that really rare book that people are after it. So that's kind of a cool thing with Sabertooth and Iron Fist.
Yeah, and I mean, I would tell you, I bet
comics have been really fun.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick, I bet you're more likely to find a 35-cent variant of that comic at like a flea market, antique store, something that just has like a pile of books. They don't know anything about them, and like they don't know what 35-cent variants is, versus like, because again, like I never see them posted for sale like on the IG pages or anything like that.
I tell you, I hunt almost daily, and I never look at the cost of the book. I don't see Canadian price variants. I don't see 35-cent variants. I never know which year it's supposed to be, and that's my fault. But I bet they're out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So Grayden, when you say you haven't spent more than $65 on a comic, so is there a certain era of comic you're like, or is it from first appearance
I'm loving the 90s. I mean, there's so many Uncanny X-Men and Wolverine covers with Sabertooth on it, and those 90, I think at this point I probably own 20 comics, and the 90s covers really do it for me. Really do it for me.
It's like, was that Wolverine 10? Which one has him and Sabertooth on a cover?
Oh, you mean like the first time that they cross paths, where he's like
212 is the first.
No, there's a Wolverine comic where he's holding him down by his throat. Sabertooth is.
Oh,
it's
yes.
Like
in the snow.
Yeah.
I don't have that one yet. I love that book. I love that.
I know the one you're talking about. The 212 is like it's Wolverine on the cover.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
The one I like, is it 232, where it's like their faces are really close
it's
together?
The next one. So it's 213.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's my favorite of those. And then when you get to the adjective list X-Men in the Jim Lee run, is it X-Men 6? Because in that issue, it's like, I don't remember the exact details, but it's like Sabertooth and Psylocke team up to fight Wolverine, and they wipe the floor with them, and like that cover is sick. Oh, also, I really
first appearance of that costume for Sabertooth.
Okay, yeah, and I also like that one. It may also be the next issue or the one before. The cover is half Wolverine's face, half Sabertooth's face. Yeah. That's a sick one.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. So when it comes to moving forward, is on the comic side, is it just any new covers that you see that look awesome you're going to grab, or do you have like a list that you're hunting? Or
I have a list for sure, but something that's been coming up lately that I've been like really interested in are the sketch covers. Like I've seen some sketch covers on blanks that were like really impressive, really impressive.
Now, would you only buy those, or would you actually look to commission, like send something to CGC for that?
That is a very good question. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into that, but I'm not really an AP kind of person. I've never commissioned a sketch. That's not really my jam.
Well, that's how you get them, is you essentially, they're not released.
Well, I've seen them for sale where there's just like people are selling ones they've got done of Sabertooth.
Yes. Yeah, because like for instance, like CGC announced today, for example, that Jim Lee is doing his annual return to CGC for his sighting, and you can send in a blank. Jim Lee is crazy expensive, let me tell you. But like it's a couple grand, I think, for a full sketch cover situation. But yeah, you can send in a blank comic cover, and then they'll do it up, and then you can even have then, like, because when he goes to CGC, he's there with his inker Scott Williams and his colorist Alex something Sinclair. Or maybe I got the inks and colors, but those guys they work as a trio.
Right.
Yeah, they work as a trio now at DC now, but like you can get the full like Jim Lee pencil it, Scott Williams will ink it, and Sinclair will color it. I mean, and it's not cheap, but I mean they do look sharp. Yeah, and then obviously you'd get it in that CGC slab, which you like. But yeah, it's not cheap.
Yeah,
guys,
one thing I've noticed is everything is just so
much more what?
Everything's so much more obtainable in secondary market.
Yeah.
Everything's so much more obtainable in the secondary market for me. So like, so many people get these things done. I've seen some really cool Sabertooth stuff, and I'm like, you know what, that's on eBay. I'm just going to scoop that. And I always get a decent price on it, where if I were to send it in, I wouldn't even be able to articulate exactly what I want.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, like I'd be curious, like for you to post or at least send me some of the Sabertooth ones you've seen, because I can't think of a Sabertooth sketch cover that I've seen.
Dude, I missed one recently that, like, I was, I should have just bought it. I've been so focused on cards and stuff like that I sometimes forget about the stuff on my watch list, and this one sold, and I was bummed. I should have got
it. That point you just made, though, is actually kind of where I was going to go to next. So you collect sets, you collect Sabertooth, you now collect Sabertooth comics. If there's a pie of the hobby, what percentage of the pie goes to each of those three?
That's a crazy question, actually. I never really thought about that. I would say that at this point, probably.
Oh, we lost him. Hold on. There you are.
Hey, sorry. I'm in the jungle. I'm in the North Pole. What slice of the pie goes to it? I'm going to say that 50% of my collecting goes to Sabertooth card collecting. Okay, I'm going to say that 25%. I'm going to say 30% goes to yeah, and so set collecting goes to about 30%, and then 20% of my collection is comics.
Got it. Okay, so then at the moment, the Sabertooth PC is the greatest passion by a lot. We got him.
No, he's.
It is the collecting Sabertooth cards is definitely my focus.
You're breaking in and out here, Graydon.
Okay, let me try something. Am I back?
We can hear you now, but we can hear you now. You're frozen.
Am I there again?
Yeah, we got you.
That's right. It's Aurora Borealis messing up the signal.
Okay. Okay, sorry.
No.
Okay, this is why we don't do live. Okay, cool. Sorry. Let's go back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Your percentages of
my percentages, are mainly on collecting the Sabertooth cards, but I'm so close to being done that that's about to change. So I will have more time for comics. I will have more time for other stuff.
So then, with that in mind, with the comics, does that mean you'll stray beyond the Sabertooth covers, or does it just mean you'll just go for more of those?
I don't think I'm going to stray from the covers, but I'm hesitant to say because I'm pretty loose. You know what I mean? I don't have my mind made up on anything. I'm pretty open to it. My mind changes, and I'm open to collecting a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. With that in mind, now let's talk about your channel, Last Pack Magik. When did it start? Kind of tell people that, let's just hypothetically say no one that's watching knows what your channel is about. What is your channel? What's the gist of it? What are you putting out? That kind of content stuff.
So, I started this YouTube channel because every year I try to do something I've never done before. So this was just this was a full-blown challenge of starting something different. I always wondered about what I was going to start a YouTube channel about. And if I did surfing, all my friends would kill me because I'd give away all the good spots. I didn't want to do one about skateboarding because I'm not very good at it. So that wouldn't have been a very good channel either. So I sort of had to think about what I was going to do. And I just decided one day that I enjoyed the Marvel hobby, and I still haven't really shown all of the stuff I do in it, but a channel was a really good option for me to get to try something new and have some fun.
Yeah. And so tell people what the channel is about. And where does the name Last Pack Magik come from?
So, it's funny. I was watching card breaks, and every single card breaker, from sports to Marvel to DC to Ninja Turtles, all of it, they'd be like, "Oh, it's the last pack. Here we go, some Last Pack Magic." And I was watching it, and I was like, "Man, it'd be really smart to start a channel where everyone's already saying it." And I was like, "Yeah, I might as well. That if I were going to make a channel, that's what I would call it." And
you got free marketing right there, baby.
that's what I was thinking. I was like, you know what? That's what I would call it. And then I opened up some blaster boxes and stuff, and I was like, I'm going to keep the last pack as the Last Pack Magic, and I'm going to put them in a box, and I'm going to mail them to a breaker and get them to open it. And I did that, and that breaker was Spidey Hits. And so nice. I mailed the box to Justin, and he opened it, and I just decided I was going to run with a channel, and I did a podcast, and I do box breaks, and I do hobby talk, and we have guests on. Sometimes I do shows just with myself, and we just kind of have fun with other people who are in the hobby.
Real quick, do you still save the last pack, or was that a one-time kind of thing?
I did that for a while, and now the boxes that I'm opening are typically very expensive, and I'm not saving a last pack of an expensive box. Not having it.
Yeah. So I was like, Justin just getting this like, wait. So when you sent him that box, did he send it back, or is he keeping that stuff?
Man, what's so funny is I was fully under the impression he was going to mail me, and we're opening cards, and he's like, "Oh, do you have this one?" Because he pulled some Sabertooth cards, and they got lost in his hobby room, so they're gone.
Oh, Justin, we're calling you out right now. No. You owe Graydon some cards. That's some BS.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It was funny.
His hobby room is massive too. Like, I'm not surprised.
He'll find it when he's 60, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. Awesome. What are you? Go ahead.
I wanted to make a channel too, where like there was a decent bit of Marvel content like going on when I was watching lots of different stuff and like lots of different box breaks, and I noticed that there was some definite gaps in content. Like there was space for like a channel that did more than just break a ton of boxes. And there was room for more of a conversation and something a little bit different. And I think that my channel has done a good job of including both, where it's conversation and box break,
Mm-hmm. And now let me ask you this question. Your friends that you see in person, are any of them into this hobby at any capacity?
That's a really good question. No, they're not, but I've made lots of friends through the hobby recently that are in my like geographical location.
Oh, okay.
And that I do spend a little bit of personal time with, but
yeah.
We asked that question, and most people say none of my friends know I collect, and none of them have anyone geographically close to them to see. So you're the exception to geographic connection. But we hear that a lot. The other part.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if you're aware, but like, this is episode 76. So JP and I have been doing this for a year. He lives across the country. We've never met, but this is how we met, is doing this hobby. But my point was going to be, like, I think it's great that people, like, you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be a awesome filmmaker. Like, so many of us just have gotten back in this. I feel like there's so many of us, like, we did it as kids, and now we're in our upper 30s, early 40s, maybe in our 50s. We've gotten back in, but we're kind of alone in terms of like the 3-dimensional world around us in terms of like the hobby, even though like comics and cards are still a fairly big thing, but like most of us don't know a lot of people that are also doing it. And so putting yourself out there gets you out there and like meeting new people. And like, I always tell people, right, it's the community side of this thing that keeps me here. Like, don't get me wrong, like comics, cards, it's all very awesome. But if I was still just doing this on my own at my house and there was no interaction with anyone else, I would have burned out in 6 months, because it's like, well, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you need people to talk about it. You need people to like, hey, look what I got, or look what you got, or look, I found this for you. And that, like, that's what makes it fun and makes you want to stay into it. So like, I mean, if you, for anyone out there, if you think about, gosh, maybe I should start to just do it. And even if like, you're like, I'm not good at it, like, you'll get better at it as you do it.
And don't mind if the guys in security line, TSA, make fun of you. Just keep going with your briefcase.
Yeah. And if anything, just dive in, go. What's the term? when someone like just embrace that, like, right?
Go
Like,
all in.
yeah, I'm into the cards. I got a channel about it. Like, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm stuck this way. I'm pretty unapologetic about the way that I am, and I haven't. There are definitely people who I work with that are like, "Oh my god, like dude, this is ridiculous," and I'm like, "I agree, it is ridiculous," but I'm going with it, and
Oh
I'm
yeah,
really enjoying
exactly.
it.
I mean, I tell people at work as well too. Now I'm like, oh, I have. They're like, what do you? Oh, I have a comic book podcast, and like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
I'm 41. I know who I am. I ain't embarrassed about it. Like, it's all good.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
But
exactly
what's
it.
funny is the oil rig guys are a different breed. And
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I know guys near me that do shallow well drilling, right? Because this is where I live is where the first oil well was ever found, called Titusville, PA. And so these guys do shallow well drilling. And one of my good friends has GI Joes still from when he was a kid. But I guess I guarantee the guys he works with don't know that, because that's a different type of work. Like that's you know you're busting your balls.
yeah.
And so it's different work. So kind of the tough guy mentality, but nothing wrong with what we do, but it's a good escape. But I'm sure some of them wouldn't be as understanding.
I work with some heavy hitters, and I work with some big boys, and not many of their hobbies are mine.
No, they're probably drinking beers, or they're doing shots of Jack, or they're and I don't know what they do on the weekend.
It's wild. It's wild up here. It is.
Well, I mean, imagine
absolutely
like
wild.
how long so when you go out onto the rig, how long are you out there?
I'm there for 15 days. I used to be on for 22, and now they've switched to I'm on for 15.
Okay, but so then like the crews that go out with you are essentially you guys are all out there together, right?
That's right. I got on my crew. There's 35 guys.
Yeah, so I imagine, like you said, 35 guys out onto an oil rig, and they have nothing. I mean, it's like you can only imagine like the things that are going to happen on this oil rig.
Shit gets real.
Yeah.
You should show them the Superman Man of Steel movie, because that was a little oil rig at the beginning of that movie that Superman saved everybody. So you can kind of say, "Hey, this is cool, Superman."
It's an unbelievable lifestyle. It's an unbelievable lifestyle.
I
Greg,
can imagine that. Yeah.
I want to ask: do you ever film on the rig, or is it only when you're back?
We're on the rig right now, buddy.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, we're on the rig. I'm in my small prison cell right now.
Nice.
So
that's 15 days on, and then how long are you off for?
I'm off for 6 days.
Dang. All right. Now I can understand now why you're saying your wife wants to eat breakfast together and do things like that.
That's right. Exactly.
So going back with the channel, as you know, so you're coming up on a full year now, is it? Or is it, when did you start again?
It's been 8 months.
8 months. Okay. You said you like to
You
try a
have
new thing
200
every
followers,
year.
you said. Sorry,
Yeah, that's a great start. Now, when you say you try new things every year, does that mean at the year channel's done and you're on to the next thing? Or is it like, this is something you're going to continue? Like, where do you want to see this thing go?
That's a good question. I'm having so much fun. I plan on having a channel for the foreseeable future. I have no plans on stopping.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Is there any type of content that you're looking, planning, hoping to make that you're not currently making on it right now?
You know, I'm trying so many different things. Sometimes I do mail calls, sometimes I do box breaks, sometimes I do my LPM podcast. I'm trying so many different things that literally, if it pops into my mind and I think it's a good idea, I try to act on it almost immediately. Like I know exactly who would be a good guest for that, and I line it up for like the next day. And like I just worked 16 hours today, and now I'm here doing a character choice for a case break with Justin, and then jumping on with you guys. So like I have no problems like getting it done on no matter what. So I try to act on the idea quickly. So I have nothing planned, but as it comes to mind, I just dive on it.
I will say, like, of the content you've created, I mean, no surprise here. Like, our show is mainly kind of these interview formats, and I always just love hearing people's story. I mean, hence why we're sitting here talking to you. And so, my favorite episodes of yours are you obviously doing a lot of the same thing. Like, you've had Ryan, Supersized Rye, who we've had on. Like, I love that episode with him, and you just had Sergio on, which we had on here as well. And it's just, I think, hearing people's stories, why they love what they love, why they do what they do. hearing their thoughts. Like that's the best to me. Like
it really is. And, you know, people are so interesting. You know, our age group is such an interesting group of people. I don't think that a lot of us realize how common our backstories are until we start to share our stories with one another. And it's just amazing. You know, you meet people from all sorts of different walks of life that have a real interest in this world of Marvel.
Yeah. Something I want to kind of cycle back to too, real quick. With you being in the art background and the art, you know, that's also another hobby you have. Are you at all exploring the original art side of the hobby?
Nope. Not interested in original art whatsoever.
Not interested. Is that just because of a financial component of it, or is it you just not interested in it?
I think, you know, I love that the guys and the girls are collecting original art from comic book artists, from Marvel card artists, from all of it. I think it's super cool that there is a way for artists to make money after the companies have paid them nothing to produce this amazing stuff. I love that there's a way for them to like continue to make money off of that. And I think it's super cool that people have a painting collection of their favorite characters and all that. And if I'm going to spend money on art, I spend it on street art. I'm not interested in my art collection. The reason I have cards and comics is so that I don't have to own the art. You know, when I've been involved in street art for a very, very, very long time, and when I spend money on paintings, I try to pick up those types of pieces.
Well, I have to ask now, when it comes to street art, when I think of street art, I think of someone like Banksy, for example.
Yeah.
But a lot of that stuff, like, you know, he's doing his art on a building. You can't really collect that. So when you say your collection of street art, what exactly are we talking about here?
So there's just a huge, I mean, graffiti is probably the largest art movement that's happened in the last 100 years, in my opinion. And so many of these artists have put in work for years painting publicly in the street, and then have moved on to greener pastures where they're producing fine art that is completely based off the work that they did in the street. And that work that they're doing on canvas and contemporary art is really interesting to me. I follow a lot of their art careers.
So, Graydon, here's what you got to do. You got to get one of these street artists to do a graffiti style Sabertooth on a skateboard deck. Bam.
That's funny you say that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. What was I going to say? That I wasn't, just as a brief aside here, like one of my coolest moments is like we were in a town in Chile and just walking down a random street, and down an alley, we think we found a Banksy. Like cool. It looks just like his style, and like we flipped out when we saw it. So like, yeah, the street art it's a great other hobby to get
Love
into.
It.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, this has been a ton of fun getting to know you a little bit better. As we kind of wrap up here, why don't you again kind of just blast out where everyone can find you, and we can kind of wrap it up from there.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Graydon on the Last Pack Magik channel. You can find me on YouTube. You can just search Last Pack Magik. I've got an Instagram for the Last Pack Magik channel. You can hit me up on there. If you follow along there and you're subscribed to the channel, you'll see the videos that I put out on Wednesdays. I release the LPM podcast, which is usually with other collectors or artists. And we do a 45-minute interview, show some art, talk about some stuff. I do box breaks. You can find me on the channel ripping packs with friends, and it's a pretty loose channel. It's got some fun stuff going on. And if you're interested in my personal collection of cards, I have a Sabertooth PC Instagram where you can check out everything Sabertooth.
And then there's no Instagram for the set collection, is there?
There's not, no.
Okay. And then just FYI,
other site like the Sabertooth doesn't even show any of the cards at all, right? It's all Sabertooth.
Yeah, so Sabertooth PC just has and I haven't updated it in a couple of weeks because I'm waiting on a whole big lot of stuff to come from the States. But there's a lot of cards on there, and there's about to be a lot more.
Nice. I was going to say too, for everyone listening, I will obviously put the links to all of Graydon's places in the description. But if you are searching Last Pack Magik, just note that the Magik is a K, not a C. Because I remember when I first started, I was like, when I saw you post like such and such, I was like, oh, I'm gonna look that up, and I put in Last Pack Magik with a C, and I'm like, where the hell is this? Like, and then I was like, oh shit, it's K.
Yeah.
So just make sure everyone is aware of that. Awesome. Yeah, great. This was awesome. Thanks for coming on. And even doing this while you're out on the rig. That's incredible.
Yeah.
JP, why don't you take us out?
No, hey, Graydon, I appreciate you being on. It's been fun, as Rohan said, but we're going to head out for now. But you guys can catch us on the next podcast, the next unboxing, the next X-Men 97 review, whatever it may be. But we're always posting new content thanks to Rohan. So we will see everybody on the next podcast. Peace out.
Peace out.